Hello, everybody. It is me, Jurassic Alt, here to say that today we're going to be talking about Tales from the Pizza Plex, Book 6, The Mimic, which I'm very excited to talk about. So, let's get started. Here are the timestamps for the video, and if you find this hidden image in the video, let me know down in the comments, and I will put your comment in the next video. So the story starts off with David and Edwin living in a old loom factory, and Edwin is a single father and is working on machines for Fazbear Entertainment, but David is constantly bothering Edwin, and Edwin can't get anything done, which gives Edwin an idea to make the Mimic, which David befriends, and David and the Mimic kind of start bonding, and Edwin is able to get his work done while the Mimic plays with David. As time goes on, the Mimic doesn't just learn how to copy, it learns how to respond to stuff. But a few days later, David is hit by a car and dies. It's been 2 weeks since David has died, and Edwin is still in a bad funk, but the Mimic starts copying one of David's moves that he would do, which was sign language of an ice cream. Edwin loses it and smacks and smashes the Mimics into pieces. A few months later go by, and a group of people go to the old factory and learn that they are not the first group that is sent by Fazbear Entertainment to the abandoned factory, and learn that they are trapped in the factory and are killed off one by the Mimic in a jester costume and in a lion's costume, and everyone dies. Now let's get to the side notes. So some side notes things I want to mention is that David was sign languaging for ice cream and mentions he had a tiger plushie. The ice cream thing kind of reminds me of Bonnie Bowl, because there's an ice cream area and there is a plushie that you can get in Bonnie's Bowl that is a bunny, so might be connection there. So I don't know. It does mention that Edwin is 24 and in the storyteller he is 64, so that's only a 40-year gap difference. This kind of messes up some stuff in timelines. I mean, it clarifies some stuff, but it doesn't make any sense timeline-wise. Really, that puts it right after FNAF 3 and FNAF 6, like within years. But that'll be discussed in the timeline video. Edwin mentions that he made a Mr. Hugs-looking kind of character before he was bought out by Fazbear Entertainment. So this could mean that Henry probably made Trash in the Gang and the mediocre melodies, but something else I want to kind of mention is that in Hap's video, I mentioned that Henry made Haps because Haps looks very similar to Number One Crate, so Edwin could have made Haps. It mentions that Edwin was working on a Chica, which basically confirms that Henry made Chica, so kind of a connection there. So yeah, it mentions that David and the Mimic were making drawings, and some of the drawings were hieroglyphic kind of looking stuff, which is very similar to kind of how we see in the sticky note room we see drawings and binary code in the room. Mentions a giant wooden tiger bed, so this could mean one of two things. It could be a giant tiger head that we see in the Afton battle where it's underground, or it could be meaning it's like a race car bed, but I'm kind of more leaning with a giant tiger head, because in the storyteller they mentioned a giant tiger head. So yeah, they mentioned that there was a slide in the factory, which is kind of similar to the daycare because you have to slide in. It mentions that Edwin made 18 unique animatronic characters, so I don't know how many we've seen so far, but I think by the end we'll see 18. So it says Edwin sold his company in the early 70s, so it could be meaning that it is the early 70s during the time of the Mimic, or it could be meaning early 70s of 4-5 years before the Mimic story, because if it's in the early 70s, and because it mentions David is 5 years old or coming up on 5 years old, and Edwin is 24, so that's about 5 years. So this story technically takes place in the mid 70s or early 80s possibly. So yeah, so something that I thought was interesting, that it mentions that the Mimic doesn't have any legs in the beginning of the story, but when the group of Freddy employees go into the abandoned factory, the Mimic has legs. So either that the Mimic was rebuilt and the first group that went in gave the Mimic legs, or because it does mention that one of the guys learns on a cassette tape that they are not the first people, which is very similar to Glitch Trap. in the first group put legs on the mimic, but I don't know. Something else I want to mention is that they mentioned a yellow dog and an alligator costume. Now, we've seen the alligator costume in Under Construction because it mentions that there is a Monty costume. Something I just realized was that Monty and the mimic are very similar at the beginning of the story of Monty has no legs and the mimic does not have legs. It's very similar to how the mimic is at the beginning of the story, so maybe the mimic has more of Mimic 1 programming than the other one, quite possibly. So something I think is kind of more of a connection that Henry and Edwin are kind of supposed to represent the same person is that David died by a car accident and the puppet died here in this scene, a purple car. Now, it mentions that Edwin worked on a Bonnie. Keep this in mind. So when Edwin was attacking the mimic, it mentions that he poured his murderous thoughts into the mimic. Now, the mimic has agony now. It has Edwin's agony. Something that I find interesting is that maybe Henry tried to kill William Afton to get revenge on Afton killing Henry. So that could be something there. It mentions that there are two jester costumes, which are probably supposed to represent sun and moon. Now, it mentions that they're light green and a pinkish color. Now, we've seen a light green and a pinkish color in Drowning in that story because they mentioned that for the employees under the black light had a pinkish color and a green. So some animatronic unique ones that we haven't seen before. They mentioned a mushroom man costume and a purple lion. Yes, a purple lion. I don't understand why a purple lion. Like, I kind of wish it was a wolf because that would be a connection to Edwin working on Monty and Roxanne, which I kind of was saying in the Storyteller theory video. And now let's get to the main video. So, something that I've seen a lot of people saying is that the mimic has Afton saw the killings that Afton did, which I do believe that could happen. I don't think it's happened yet, because in the Storyteller it mentions that Edwin had memories of seeing something bad, and it mentions because he saw a little girl and says that he remembers the screams, the terror, and all of that kind of stuff. So we might get another future story with Edwin there, but I think that was supposed to be the incident that he saw, and I think that was the missing kids incident. So I don't think the mimic has the glitch trap / Afton mimicking style yet, because the mimic doesn't kill the employees in the same way that William Afton does. The mimic in the story kills everybody by putting people on a meat hanger and putting them in the fridge. Now, in the story, it mentions that David was putting his coats up on the hanger and putting milk away in the fridge. So I don't think this is Afton's style of killing. And another thing is, the mimic is constantly changing into different costumes. The Glitch Trap seems like to stick with one kind of air quotes costume, which would be the bunny one. And the mimic has changed into like a ton of different other costumes, which isn't Afton's kind of style. Now, they did mention that there was a Bonnie costume, but Bonnie, it doesn't mention that the mimic changed into the Bonnie at all in that story. So I don't think that the mimic has mimicked Afton killing yet, but I think that when the mimic does mimic Afton, it is because of the missing kids of 85, because also Into the Pit, that story is about the missing kids of 85, and mentions that that spring Bonnie kind of laid the kids out in the party room, displayed, showing Oswald his kind of killings, showing off. Now, the mimic probably saw that and would make it more similar to Glitch Trap of that style of showing off killings, but not really showing off killings, of just kind of luring the kids / luring the employees, or luring us in Help Wanted. So yeah, so now let's get to the timeline. So timeline-wise, I think this is going to be early to mid Fazbear Entertainment. I think this is the earliest story that we've seen in these books so far. So yeah, I'm going to put it here in the timeline. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. It means so much to me. You took the time out of your day to watch this video. Guys, thank you so much. I'm sorry for taking so long for this video. I'm hoping to get it out within the next 2 days, and the epilogue will be out the day after this one, and Tuesday will be, I'm trying to have it be the when I release the timeline, because I know that's when that book comes out. This story will, the next book will definitely be on time, and I'll be a lot more organized and better. It was just a bit chaotic. It's the end of the year. It was the end of the year, school year for me, so sorry I got a little busy, and yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching, and remember, scissors and duct tape, I don't know,